Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gore Column, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives right after they put out important news. I don't even know how to describe this news because important is the biggest understatement of the year. Here to talk about is Marshall Gunter. You know him as the CEO of Datametrex AI, trades of the venture under DM, for our friends in the US under DTMXF. Usually we go into a great introduction about the company and talk about the artificial intelligence side, talk about their COVID-19 test kit side, which are just knocking it out of the park. But I'm going to go straight to the headline because that's what everyone's going to want to talk about. Datametrex earns $10.4 million in 6 months with $8.5 million positive cash flow in Q2. Marshall, welcome back with a bang.
Glad to be back, George. We're really happy with this right now.
Is that an understatement to say that you're really happy? But we're going to go into the numbers in a second here. But could you have imagined that a year and a half ago or so, when you came on to Datametrex to turn around, this, at the time, it's kind of a fledgling company. Could you ever imagine that this is a headline that you'd be putting out in the summer of 2021?
No, not at all. I didn't think we'd be half this far. So, like I said at the AGM when I took over, this is a 5-year project or so to get things all working on all cylinders. And I think we're really ahead of the curve at the moment.
Your excerpt, there's a small quote where in the press release says, record achievement in the history of the company. So where do we start with these numbers? I mean, there's so many great ones. Let's go the highlights. 6 months revenue. And guys, I'm rounding here, 29.5 mil. EBITDA, 12.25 mil. Net income, 10.4 mil. Cash in the bank, 9.9 million. So let's talk about that 6 months performance, because that's a bigger picture. Where's the driver, and where does this keep going?
So let's talk about that in 2 parts. So the 6 months here, the main driver was the COVID business with the film and production industries, and we knew that. So there's a really large Q1, a pretty big Q2, but that's seasonal as the film and television industry comes. They wrap up in early Q2, and then they start up again in Q3 every year. So that's ongoing, and we're still working with them in Q3 right now across the country from Montreal to Vancouver. Additionally, we signed new accounts on the AI side. So that's the main driver right now for this particular portion of the business. That being said, the main driver coming up is definitively the AI portions of this, is they're really firing on all cylinders at the moment as we're entering 2 new verticals on that space with Medical and with the financial tech that we're just starting to look into right now. So where it's coming from, we got a good leg up with the COVID. Where it's going is right back into the AI and into the core business.
I want to talk about those 2 AI initiatives in a second. Q2 revenue is 10.45 million, but again, rounding up 435%. And you're saying that's actually potentially a bit of a slow quarter, because the film and television industry is kind of winding down for Q2. That's when they kind of go quiet. So you expect Q3 to have that same kind of performance? I'm not asking for projection, but should investors at home take some confidence that that's kind of going to continue?
Yeah, well, right now, from what we understand, it's going to continue at least through the end of the year. So that's what the industry is looking at. Additionally, it's not just the film and television industry that are looking into this, but the government's also saying the same thing here in Canada, and we're seeing another wave coming through with this Delta variant, mostly in the US, but here in Canada also, and so we're not going to be immune from it. So we'll see where it takes us, but definitively through the end of the year. Personally, I expect it to go a little further than that, because the projections I saw earlier have not come to fruition. Things are still locked down. There's still a ton of outbreaks all over the continent. So this is not going away anytime soon. Soon being, within the next year or so. And in fact, we might have to live with it, but we'll just see where the science takes it.
Well, God forbid of that. I mean, I know Datametrex obviously benefits from it, but hopefully the AI side will pick up and just fire off and away it goes. And the COVID-19 will be steady, but not getting bigger. But there's devil's advocate here. I do want to ask you about one number that I saw in Q2. So again, revenue 10.45, cash flow 8.5 million. Those are unbelievable numbers. But net income, I did a double take, is 850,000. How do you get cash flow of 8.5 million? And cash flow is the ultimate, to me, the ultimate measure of the health of any company. But net income of 850,000.
Well, we chose to do some, house cleaning this quarter. There are a lot of legacy assets that Datametrex had when, especially when I came in, that needed to be taken care of. So we chose to just go ahead and write those off this quarter. So there's a lot of depreciating assets that we needed to take care of on the books, et cetera. And there was a lot of debt. Okay. So we took care of, all but like a tiny fraction of all of that this quarter. So our books and our financials are just squeaky clean. One of the main drivers behind this is, I've gotten a lot of inquiries from institutional investors and things. And one of the first things they asked me about are those debts and those legacy assets and what we're going to do with them.
Yep.
Why are our books so dirty? So that was one of the main goals here. The second, my first goal, obviously, when we took over, is to get the company stabilized with a good amount of money in the bank. That's taken care of. Second goal, take care of all this bookkeeping, clean it up. So when we're going out to, say different investors and institutional investors and stuff, we've got squeaky clean financials and everything looks really good. And it sets us up for, the long-term health of the company. So all we got to do now is grow and grow and grow.
And it's important to note, I think, for people at home, that those are non-cash items at the end of the day.
That is correct. Yeah, absolutely. Non-cash items. We've got the money in the bank. It doesn't affect operations day to day at all.
And just my 2 cents for everybody watching or listening, companies that are in this kind of phase of success will often do that because the core business are now taken off and doing well. And they'll take old legacy assets and just write these things down just to get them right off the books, and away it goes. And that's the smart thing to do, because as shareholders, we tend to look a lot of people tend to look at the income statement side, which is what's the revenue, what's the profit, what's the cash flow. That's great. But I'm glad you brought that up. When you want to expand and you want to do more, institutional investors look at your balance sheet. Right. So you essentially just clean that up. So you happy now, Marshall? Safe to say the balance sheet is the strongest it's ever been?
Absolutely. Balance sheet looks great. We're super happy about it. And we're super excited to get out there and tell people our story with that squeaky clean financial speed.
All right. Let's talk about the AI side, because obviously the COVID-19 side, the test kit side, we know is going great. We know film and television is where you're getting a big chunk of that. And it's just a juggernaut. The AI side, I'm going to ask you, because you put out an update last week on this $40 million contract in Canada. That's all you said, in Canada. Are you able to tell us anything about that? Because it seems like you're being really cryptic in these press releases.
Well, we're not being cryptic on purpose. We're being cryptic because we're being told we have to be cryptic. George, just to tell you the truth, we've been at this particular piece for a year and a half now, if you count all the work that's gone into it and the different contracts that have gone through. So we're very, very happy with where that particular process is going and where it sits. And it's taken a little bit longer than we expected, but that doesn't, it doesn't change the fact that we're doing very, very, very well in that. And, we're really happy with how that's going. I'm hoping that'll wrap up within the next 4 to 6 weeks at worst, as the work and everything was originally slated to kick off next month. But that's about all I can say. Unfortunately, we're under a bit of a gag order.
If you're successful in closing it out, do you think at that point you'll be able to provide more information, or will you can still be under gag order at that point?
No. Eventually it's all got to come out. That's the rules. But while things are ongoing and things are being shaped and molded, the people in question prefer that everything just stay under wraps. So that's where we're at. But yeah, it'll definitely come out.
What does that say for third party? What does that say as third party validation for the AI side of the business? That again, we got to be clear. You haven't won it. It hasn't been officially awarded or closed. But just the fact that you are right there, you've gone through the second stage of it. What does that say, or what should we take away from that in terms of how the country, maybe North America, and perhaps even the world views Datametrex artificial intelligence capabilities?
So let's just put that in perspective. I'm glad you asked that question. So when we were doing this a year and a half ago, we started bidding on contracts like this. First contract we bid on was $98,000, and we were cleared for that, and we won it. And then we bid on another one for about $115,000. And then after that, we were allowed to bid on, about a I don't quote this number, but like $1.3 million contract. Now we're up and bidding on, tens of millions of dollars in contracts. So the progression is there, and our ability to do that type of work and our ability to successfully fulfill those contracts is being noted. Otherwise, we would not be allowed into these processes. I mean, you have to be approved to even go into it.
Right.
So
to even get a chance to look at it, they're not going to even let George look at it. Even if I tell them I can do it for $1, they're not going to let me look at it.
No, you have to have a proven track record in order to be, in these realms. Right. And our track record for, literally right now, as we sit here today, like 18 months since we did that first bid, has grown like exponentially. Like it's taken off. Now, the downside for, for the regular investor is the news cycle on these things. Unfortunately, they're slow, but it's nothing you can do, nothing we can speed up. I mean, the processes are in place for a reason. But they do take longer than COVID. Some of these take up to a year as they evolve and as the bidding goes, and the trimming down of who's still allowed to stay in the bid, et cetera, et cetera.
But hold on, Marshall, I wanted to ask you something though. But going forward, given how artificial intelligence is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but is just going to become a bigger and bigger part of our lives, personal, corporations, government, wouldn't it be fair to say that AI contracts at some point are going to get to a point where they're on a fast cycle because demand is coming from everywhere? Do you see that day coming soon? Because I that's what I see coming.
Yes, and actually we've hit that day right now.
Okay.
But people aren't realizing it. There's a reason we're expanding into 2 verticals right now, because we are being invited to do a lot of work by a lot of different corporations. There are a lot of people that want our attention right now. So as a group, we decided, as the directors of the company, et cetera, okay, let's take on 2 new verticals. And that's what we're doing, like I said, with Medical and with the financial tech. So let's jump into these 2 other areas that people have been,
let's do that.
Begging us to get into. The question becomes, how fast can we grow and sustain this? All right. So that's where we're looking at. Let's jump in with 2 more. So we'll triple our capacity is what we're saying right here, as far as that's concerned. And let's look at that for the next few months, see how that goes. And if this is going well, maybe we do it again. So then we'd up to, 9 times, or maybe we'll go up to 6 times of what we're doing now. So the ball is rolling. Like, this is the beginning. The ball is rolling. It's moving forward. We have the finances to do what we want to do, whereas we didn't have that before. And so you're seeing, you're starting to see the fruition of all of our work and the culmination of everything we've been working for to stabilize the company and to move this forward. So that's exactly what we're witnessing now. It's the tip of the iceberg at this point, and it's all going to become visible very, very fast.
Tell us about the 2 verticals quickly. Why these verticals, right? So people at home, especially for people, there could be a lot of new people watching and listening, because when they see this headline, it's going to bring in people that are going to have to watch because they're going to be compelled. What is it about these 2 verticals, just quickly, why you're choosing them?
Okay, so let's take it one by one. First, we'll start with the healthcare side of things. So one of the more interesting things that came up over the past year as we've been working in the healthcare sector is what can our AI do to improve, healthcare? Will it work? Was the big question. Can we speed up diagnosis? Can we make them more accurate? Can we, get people treated more quickly and more accurately using tech apps, et cetera. And so when we took a look at that, we spent a couple months in R&D just looking through it with various healthcare providers and some of the physicians we have on staff, and we came to the conclusion that the answer is absolutely. This can absolutely be done. And we did some case studies to where about, I'll have to get the number out, but it was about 56% of the first diagnoses were correct when they were done by humans. When we took that same data on a trained, partially trained AI, it got to 98%. And so that is a massive increase of first diagnosis being, correct when assisted by the AI. And so that's why we're in that particular vertical with Medical, because we believe that this is going to be a game changer, coming around over the next decade. And that's what we're looking at. We're not looking at, okay, can we make a buck in the next 6 months? Is like, can we build a sustainable business over the next 10 years of this and advance the art of medicine and tech at the same time? And that's one of the reasons we're in that vertical. Because we have a lot of learning in the healthcare sector now, after we've worked in it for the past over a year now, and we're going to marry that with the AI. The second vertical we're in, looking at financial tech. Now, this one has been on the radar for a very long time, so this is not new.
Big one.
So this is not something that we just made up, and it's not as cutting edge as the healthcare stuff. People have been using tech to do, financial work for decades. In fact, I ran a hedge fund around it. If you look back at my CV, over 10 years ago. That being said, it's a little bit of a different world now. So everybody's more connected, and it's a little bit more difficult. But there is one big outlier out there that nobody's been able to crack, and that's cryptocurrency. Okay. Now you have a lot of big players out there in the tech space doing, high frequency trading, algorithmic trading.
That's been Wall Street for 30 years, 25 years now.
Exactly. And, you're fighting for space in New York, trying to get your server, 10 meters closer to the exchange.
To get that nanosecond speed difference to make, that means $100 million more profit at the end of the year. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so that's a pretty well-known industry. We're not trying to get into that. We're not trying to break into that with anything new or something that's very well established. What we are looking at is the cryptocurrency space, and what makes it interesting is basically the lack of regulation. So what we're seeing is, can we harness the power of this AI to gainfully predict what's going to happen on these cryptocurrency markets? I say gainfully predict, but that would be gainfully predict enough in order to, turn a profit, right? You're not going to be right every single time, but are you right enough times in order to make money? And we're not the only ones looking into this, because cryptocurrency is a bit of a wild west right now. You're not going to see the big ups and dips that you see in the cryptocurrency market in your standard markets, because they're regulated, and if something decides it's going to crash, then the stock exchange will step in and halt trading and things like that to prevent too much wealth loss. That's not the case in crypto. Elon Musk can put out a tweet and the whole market goes nuts.
And Dogecoin goes from half a penny to 50 cents. People make 100 times their money in 3 months.
Exactly. So what we're saying is there, are there patterns here that we can exploit to turn a profit? And we're not the only ones looking at this. We signed a contract with a large financial group in Korea around this called Shinhan. And so we're looking at that right now. Now, we consider this, an extraordinarily interesting space to be in. And our initial R&D showed a lot of promise. So that's the reason we're in those two verticals.
Yeah, the less regulation, the more you need something like AI, right? Like, for
That's right.
example, I obviously I trade a lot of the bigger cap stocks, and if you have your fundamentals, your technical analysis, it's
Mhm.
not that difficult to do well. But that's because it's so structured. There are very few wild fluctuations or very little unknowns, right? But on the crypto
Right.
side, wild fluctuations because there's so many unknowns happening because regulation still isn't there. So AI could play a big role. How long until you think, ballpark? I'm not trying to nail you down to a specific time or a specific date, until you think you'll have something that you can go to market with.
I would say we've got something that would probably be in play in a few months, so I'm definitely before the end of the year. I've already got a dashboard sitting on my desk that we're using internally to monitor this stuff. And you hit on something right there that I just wanted to emphasize. One of the bigger things in this type of Wild West market is factoring in all those different variables,
Yeah.
right? Hundreds and hundreds of them. So anybody that's traded, traditionally on a stock market or ETFs or whatever, is probably familiar with Bloomberg's terminal. Okay, that's one of the most famous, dashboards they've got. And if
It's
you've
the
ever seen,
dashboard, right? It's the dashboard.
yeah, I mean, the only one, right? And if you've ever seen one running, usually somebody has 6 monitors up with that dashboard scattered across all 6 of them. Now, that's for regular stuff. You could take that, multiply it by 100 for what's going on in the cryptocurrency world. And it's almost impossible for a human to keep track of all this stuff. And that's the
So I'll say it
reason
is impossible, not almost impossible.
Yeah.
It is impossible.
So that's the reason we think that the AI can be used to harness all of that, because we can do stuff, with the tech in nanoseconds that takes humans, minutes and minutes of processing time to figure out. So we can make those calls, I don't know, 20 minutes ahead of the curve, even not even, 2 minutes ahead of the curve. We can make this really profitable.
Well, are you contemplating a B2C product where, hey, George, you want to trade crypto? Here's our AI, and you pay us $100 a month? Or is it going to be a B2B where you're going to go to large funds and institutions, say, hey, if you want to put $50 million to work in the crypto world, you got to use our AI to help protect you on the downside and help you spot the upside? Or could it be both?
It's going to end up being both. The question is going to be
Nice.
how we roll it out. Right now, the current portion of it is being engineered for B2B because that's what we were looking at with the contracts. However, the end game, like what I'm talking about with those dashboards and stuff, that can definitively be used B2C. But it's going to depend. We're going to most likely go B2B first, validate the product, make sure that everything's working, etc.
Yeah.
Once we have that out there, then we go B2C. And there's multiple reasons for that. One, it's easier to validate the product when you're only dealing with a smaller number of clientele. And number two, there's liability when we go B2C that has to be worked out. That's going to take a little bit longer than when we go B2B. So there's a lot of legal ramifications around that are just going to take time. It's just, that's how it goes.
All right. And ballpark, you think you might be a few months away from the first iteration of a B2B product?
That's right.
Unbelievable. I mean, if Datametrex was just what it is today, everybody would be ecstatic. But to know that these are coming down the road, and what that tells me also is that you're going to have other verticals that you're going to be going into. You just can't go into 20 at the same time. So Datametrex AI looks like it's going to start living up to its name and really building out this AI juggernaut. I'm going to throw one thing out there, and you can say no comment, but no matter what, and I'm pretty sure other people are probably thinking it. Do you get to a point where you start thinking about spinning out the COVID-19 side, because the AI side, they're both strong, they're both powerful, but because they're not entirely compatible? I mean, do you ever start thinking about things like that? And if you can't answer, you can't, but I was thinking about it.
Well, I mean, the short answer is Datametrex has done that in the past on several occasions. They spun out Graph Blockchain, and then there was the Ronin business, et cetera. And that's what they were originally set up to do. So it's never off the table. Let's put it that way, because that's just the way the company was set up. That's the structure of the company. That was the intention. At the moment, no. Right now, that business is too profitable
Yeah.
to spin out, and we don't want to do it. I'm not going to rule it out, though. I mean, at some point in time in the future, yeah, we may do that. Yeah, we may do that. I mean, AI is our core. It's the thing we're going to keep pushing on for the next, 5 to 10 years. So we'll see what the future brings on that one.
Yeah, my personal opinion, and it's just, by the way, for Marshall, for everybody, my personal opinion is eventually the COVID-19 stuff side is going to have to get spun out, because the AI side is going to be so strong, and bigger and bigger investors are going to say, what's with the COVID-19 side? We love the numbers. Why don't you spit it out and make its own company and let those numbers thrive on their own? That way. Why? Because in my opinion, I think institutional investors at some point are going to say, how do we value a company that's got two strong divisions, but they're totally, they're diametric, they're not even related to each other. But that's a good problem to have, right, Marshall?
Yeah, I'm very happy with it at the moment. I'll keep my problem.
Well, buddy, congratulations. Thanks for coming back. It's always great when you take the time to speak with everyone, to give real context and deeper. That's why we call this Beyond the Press Release. Last words to you, because you're the man of the hour. Last words to you as to what you want to say to your shareholders and new investors who are probably watching and listening.
Well, for the people that have been here for a while, we really appreciate the support. We're glad you're sticking with us. For the new people that are coming on board, take a look at what we're doing. Keep your ear to the ground over the next month or so. There's a lot of good news coming out. And then just take a look at our last track record. We feel we've done really well with what we had, and the success is going to continue.
Thanks for joining us, Marshall. And there's no doubt about it. The numbers say that it's going to continue. So can't wait to have you back. Hopefully sooner than later on other developments, and continued success in the meantime.
Thanks, George.
To everybody at home who's been watching or listened by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform, you've been listening and watching to Marshall Gunter. He's CEO of Datametrex AI, trades of the venture under DM for our friends in the US, DTMXF, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under D4G. For those of you new to the story because you saw the headline and had to come discover who the company is, you've got fantastic information from Marshall. You got to start your due diligence. Two ways to do that. First, get to the company's profile in the GoreCom, because we know there's a lot going on. It's artificial intelligence, COVID-19 testing. There are a lot of moving parts. We give you a really, really good 10,000 foot overview of the company, so you get a great overall understanding. But then to do your deep dive, either from a GoreCom, or you can see it right above Marshall right now, get over to the company's website, datametrex.com, do your deep dive due diligence. If you're a believer in the future of artificial intelligence, then I think you've got to do that. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel and never missing another great GoreCom small cap video.